Hi, and welcome to AE Help's IELTS test preparation videos. This lesson and the materials you see are taken from aehelp.com. For lots more help with the academic IELTS, please visit us there and join our full course. In this video, we will be looking at a writing section task 2 question for the IELTS exam. We will discuss how to prepare your response to the question, as well as how to analyze the question to make sure that you understand it clearly. And then we will go through a complete working example, writing, of course, the minimum 250-word essay, which should get you a nice high score on the IELTS exam. Now, for more practice like this, again, just go to our website and you'll see there are different kinds of questions that you can try for task 2. And if you'd like, send it to our experts for professional editing and feedback and to see what kind of a score you can expect on the IELTS exam. All right, so the first step is simply just to look at the question and read the question. Some individuals believe that the primary goal of universities should be to provide information and skills needed for future work. Others, however, feel that the main objective of universities is to give students access to knowledge for its own values, regardless if the information is useful for a job or not. What, in your opinion, should be the primary objective of university education? Give reasons for your answer and include any relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience. Write at least 250 words. You should spend about 40 minutes on this task. All right, so whether you're practicing at home or sitting the official IELTS exam, the very first step that you need to take when you're doing task 2 of the writing section is to make sure that you understand the question. The number one mistake that's committed by test takers for the IELTS is that they answer off topic, and that's potentially the easiest way to lose marks. So even if your writing is good, if you're not answering the specific question, you will not get a good mark. So you should always make sure that you have a clear understanding of the question. Now, when you're practicing this at home, the best way to check your understanding of the question is simply to paraphrase the question. So again, we're using the skill of paraphrasing here in writing, and use synonyms, antonyms with negatives, grammar, expression, so on, to paraphrase the question. If you cannot paraphrase the question, then even though you might think you understand the question, there's a good chance that you probably don't. If you truly understand it, you should be able to paraphrase it to some level. So that's always a good way to confirm that you know what you're looking at. All right, so when you're doing this at home, again, remember the best way to practice this is simply write out the original question, and then above the original question, write the paraphrase. This is great practice. Of course, during the official exam, you don't have time for this, so you will need to do the paraphrasing either in your mind or just on a separate piece of paper that's provided for you, but you don't write out the original question in the actual exam because that's not an efficient use of time. However, at home, definitely write out the original question. Okay, to save a little bit of space here, I'm simply going to paraphrase the question and just give you the paraphrase that I came up with to make sure that I understand what I'm looking at. So the question says, some individuals believe that the primary goal of universities should be to provide information and skills needed for future work. Another way we can say this is certain people think that the main objective of universities needs to be the provision of knowledge and tools required for the workforce. Okay, so again, keeping it simple, certain people, some individuals believe think that universities need to give. So the main goal here, I said the main objective, instead of give, provision, instead of skills, tools, instead of future work, I wrote the workforce. Again, use different kinds of synonyms, different kinds of expressions to paraphrase. If you're having trouble, remember, use a thesaurus. That's a special type of dictionary which gives you synonyms and antonyms for words. All right, so this paraphrases the first sentence, and let's keep going. So others, however, feel that the main objective of universities is to give students access to knowledge for its own values, regardless if the information is useful for a job or not. So this is saying that other people believe that universities should give the availability of knowledge and information to students without considering the application or the utility for the workplace. So that's kind of a paraphrase already. This is how I paraphrase it. So opponents, of course, are other people who disagree. Support the belief that universities' ultimate aim is another way to say goal. Aim is to provide learners possibilities for gaining information without considering its utility for employment. Okay, so it's a nice long paraphrase here, but there it is, the complete paraphrase of the original question. When you practice this, it will become quick, and it's definitely worth doing this, even if it takes you 1 or 2 minutes of the 40 minutes in the exam. First and foremost, again, because then you make sure that you truly understand the question. There are other reasons. The second reason that you should practice and do this with task 2 questions is it helps you to think about the question. It helps you to come up with ideas, and it helps you to concentrate on this topic, on this context. The third big reason that you want to practice and do this is because now you have a lot of synonyms and other ways to express the words of the question, which will be, of course, very useful when you're actually writing the essay. So having all of these different words for job, such as employment, workforce, opportunities, possibilities, goals, objectives, aims, and so on. So these words now will make your essay a lot more rich with vocabulary, and therefore you're going to get a better score. So that's very useful vocabulary. All right, so now that we have the paraphrase of the question, our next step is to actually plan the essay. Of course, now that you're sure you understand the question clearly, your second step, of course, is to plan your essay, so to have a good structure. Never just start writing an essay without knowing what you're going to write about. That's a very good way to get a low score, simply because the most important parts of good writing are coherence and structure. So there needs to be a completeness, a wholeness to your ideas. There needs to be a good flow of information and a structure so that, of course, it's clear and easily comprehensible for your reader. If it's not, then it's just not going to get a great score, even if you're using good grammar, good vocabulary. So you must have structure. Now, to have structure, you need to plan. And the best way to plan is by using critical thinking. And the basics of critical thinking, of course, are the three big questions: what, why, and how. So when you look at a question, any question, but especially here at task 2, then you should be able to identify the topic of the question. The topic of the question comes from the what question. So what is this question asking? Now, if we look at the question, then we will notice that what it's asking you about is your opinion about the goals of universities. And it says that in the first sentence of the question and the second sentence. So some people believe the goals of universities is this, and others believe it's that. So clearly, if I ask, what is this about, then the answer will be the main goal of university. Okay? Now, it's really important that you're clear on this. So it's not just about university, it's not just about the goal of university, but it's about the main goal of university. If you can't identify the topic of the question specifically, then you will have trouble to write a good essay. So it's very important that you do this, practice it as much as you need to, so that you can do this quickly. During the official exam, you may not have enough time to write down the topic in like this, so you need to be able to do it in your mind. In order to do it in your mind correctly and quickly, you must practice it at home and, of course, by writing it down. So here we're talking about the main goal of universities. The second question, of course, is why? So why should we discuss what the main role of universities should be, whether to give knowledge for the workplace or whether to just give access to knowledge for its own value? So why talk about this? Why is it important? Now, here you should try to visualize and again think critically and logically. If I think about this, I should realize that university graduates become professionals who have very important jobs in society. So this makes the question of the goal of universities very, very important. So why is this important? Because university education has a great impact on society. So there's a lot of influence there. So that's why it's really important to discuss this. And then, of course, the third question is how. So how does university education have a strong influence on society? Well, the answer here, of course, is by providing high level of training to the students. So by providing very high level education to individuals. Okay, so once you have the what, why, how, read it, check it, make sure that you agree with it the second time that you read it as well. You might come up with some other answers. And now that you've seen this, you can make your decision on what your opinion is to the answer, whether universities should give skills simply for the workforce or whether they should give access to knowledge. And then you can go forward to write your essay. So here, when I look at this, I realize that university has a great impact on society, and most likely the main goal of university is not just simply to give skills for future work, but to give access to information, because that allows students to develop society further, to be dynamic, to be innovative, to be creative. And I can get that by going through this thought process. All right, so again, make sure to practice this at home, and when you sit the actual exam, make sure that you go through the what, why, how question in your mind before you start writing. Now that we have this, we're ready to begin our essay, so let's start with the introduction. The first part of every essay, of course, is the introductory paragraph, or the introduction. Now, the introduction has three very important parts, namely the hook, the background, and the thesis statement. So you want to make sure that you have these three parts and that they're well written and they flow together. And of course, begin by indenting about 5 spaces. That's just kind of conventional writing, so that's the way it's done. All right, so here we go with the hook. So again, remember that the hook is some kind of a sentence which should catch your reader's attention. It should make them want to read what you're writing. If it's not interesting for you, it's probably not interesting for your reader, so that's a good way to check how well you've written your hook. If you think it's exciting or if you think it's interesting, then your reader will probably think the same. So here we're talking about university education, and when we write a hook, there are different ways or different styles of writing a hook. One of the most common, most effective ways, and one of the fastest ways to write a hook is think about a global statement. So some worldly statement or worldly fact that everybody will be able to connect with. So if I'm thinking about university, and I'm thinking about university education, and I'm thinking about university students and university graduates, then I realize that university graduates, so people who finish universities, are usually the people who give the direction of society for various countries in the world. So politicians, of course, are most of them university graduates, doctors, lawyers, engineers, and so on. So a good strong hook here in this for this question would be university graduates dictate the direction of history. All right, so this is my hook, and make sure that you start your IELTS essay with a hook, because the IELTS examiners are looking for this. So hopefully you can come up with something similar, and that will catch the reader's attention. Now, the second part of your introduction should be a brief explanation of why this question of the main goal or objective of university is an important one. And here the hook already kind of gives a hint for that. So clearly the fundamental role of university is an important component of society for present and future. So it's simply just emphasizing to your reader that you recognize that discussing or debating the main goal of university is important because it does influence the structure and function of society. Now, this is a bit about the background, so this is background here. We'll just go like this. And then following the background is the most important sentence or a couple sentences of your entire essay, which is the thesis statement. So the thesis statement is basically where you declare your opinion. So this is where a lot of that paraphrasing that we did in the first step can really come in handy. Now, again, remember with the thesis from previous lessons, you need to make sure that you have a couple of really clear points which will form your body paragraphs, and those points are in parallel grammar structure. You'll see that in a second here. So before you start to write your thesis, know what those points will be that you're going to discuss. Really pay attention to what the task 2 question is asking. This task 2 question is asking for your opinion. What is your opinion? What should be the main goal of universities? So your thesis statement must have your opinion about what the main goal of universities needs to be. Okay, so as I mentioned during the critical thinking, the planning process, I believe that the main goal of universities should be to give students access to knowledge even without thinking about the job or the work or whether it's useful. Because when universities focus on giving access to knowledge for students, they become innovative and they become dynamic. Innovative means creative and inventive, and dynamic means adaptive and flexible. So these are my 2 points, and this is what I really want to write about, so I need to put those into my thesis statement. So although certain individuals or people believe universities main objective should be to give skills and information for future employment. I believe that the essence of universities must be to open doors to Knowledge regardless of job utility. Okay, now, very importantly, I'm not done yet because I haven't emphasized the 2 points that I would like to argue in my essay, which will support my opinion. So this is only half of my thesis so far, so I need to finish it and write the other half. This approach empowers students to be innovative and dynamic. All right, so that's the end of my thesis and my 2 points for my 2 body paragraphs, because that's all you have time and space for in your 250 or 300 word essay. So my 2 points are innovative and dynamic. Now notice how it's a noun and it's a noun. So here we have parallel grammar structure, which is great, 2 very clear points, and the reader will see that likely my first body paragraph will be about how students become innovative when the main goal of university is to give access to knowledge, and my second one will be about how they become dynamic and why these are important. So now I'll continue my essay from there with my body paragraph 1. So again, this is the end of the thesis. Make sure you have a good, strong thesis. If you don't, stop, think, and write it again, because without a good thesis, you're just simply not going to be looking at a very good score. So again, thesis, the most important part of the essay, if we can choose one. All right, let's continue with body 1. To see the rest of this writing video and for lots more help with the task 1 and task 2 of the writing section in the Academic IELTS, please visit us at www.aehelp.com and join our full course.